Say on the 20th.
I don't have a problem, just let me know which night, because I'm going out of town on Friday, so we need to do it earlier than that. Anybody else have a problem?
This Friday? Friday, or
Not the
next?
first.
Can we do it on the 28th, Tuesday?
Tuesday.
It doesn't matter, I'm just curious.
Okay, maybe 5 p.m.
You make 5 for real?
Because what, and I'll just explain what we're doing is we're taking the ARPA money that we received, the first half of it, and we're wanting to put it into an operating budget. So we want to make sure we have our bases covered, because I have to make sure that we're doing it correctly. And we've got a rough idea, but I want to make sure it's right before we go through with this. And plus we have some other stuff that.
Me too, because I don't want these guys to read ink like
Right.
5 o'clock. I can do it Friday if you want me to do it before lunch.
So
Tuesday, 5 is good.
Tuesday at 5.
Tuesday?
Okay, and you want to go, can you advertise that?
That's item 11, move to Tuesday. Friday.
Yeah.
That's for Tuesday.
Yes,
That's
I
for
think that's fine.
Tuesday at 5. Is that good for you?
If things can go, you know.
We'll have it done.
5:30.
We'd love to have your input. We'll get it done.
So you want to move item 11 to next Tuesday at 5 p.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other additions, deletions, or corrections? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda with the agreement to move item 11, budget amendment number 5, to include ARPA money to next Tuesday at 5 p.m. in this room. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, likewise, motion carries. Item 5, consent agenda, additions, deletions, corrections. Chair will entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
All in favor, aye? Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Item 6, audit presentation.
You want me to hand these out?
I've already got it.
Oh, you're gonna, okay, great. All right, I think you have before you a green book, and there are two also excerpts as well, PowerPoint and a management letter. In the old days, we used to try to pull out this green book and kind of walk through it, and that didn't ever go too well. And so what we learned through the years is to kind of put together a brief PowerPoint where we hit the highlights, related to the fiscal year 21 audit. So if you don't mind, we will walk through this PowerPoint. But if you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to ask, or if you want to wait until the end, that is great as well. All right, so on the first page, we'd like to remind everybody on the bottom slide there of the importance of internal controls. Every organization needs checks and balances. You don't want one person who can do it all. And so one of the things that we do as your auditors is that we try to look at your significant internal control processes. And if we see that there's issues, it's not only important I talk to Zach and Susan about it, but it's also important that you be aware. Because how would you be able to fix something if you don't know it's broken? So that's there as well. These are your financials. So this big green book is the town's financials. And then we flip to the next page. Slide number 3, and it is front and back. Our responsibility as your auditors is to issue an opinion. Remember, we look at things from a materiality perspective, which is somewhere right around 2 to 3%. I know some of you would care about a penny if it was off on your bank record when you were doing it on your bank account. There's some of you, if you got within a couple $100, you say, I'm close enough. Everybody's different. But again, we're looking at about 2 to 3%. And so we have issued an opinion, and it's an unmodified opinion, which means we're not aware of anything being materially misstated. There could be lots of little things, but nothing material to the financial statements. The other thing that we did is we had to implement GASB 84 on fiduciary activities for fiscal year 21. And what that did is it moved some of the funds that were showing up as agency funds and made us move them into the general fund. It was a new accounting requirement. So again, all the numbers were somewhere in the report before, but they're just getting reshuffled. And certain things that were showing up in the agency fund now are being shown in the general fund. All right, well, let's look at slide number 4. Let's look at your fund balance. Your total fund balance increased $41,000 for the general fund. Remember, some of that fund balance is restricted, right? You have the state stabilization by state statute requirements, and that amount was $674,000. And there were some other small amounts that were restricted for transportation and culture and recreation. There's also a category called non-spendable. Those are amounts that you already paid for, like maybe insurance or even land held for sale. And so that when we skip over to slide number 5, we're left with a category called unassigned. And unassigned means there's no constraints. It's available at your discretion to use. And that balance was $908,000, which is about 45% of your 2021 actual expenditures and about 53% of your 2022. Remember, you have a fund balance policy that requires a minimum of 25. So you can see you're in good stead with that. Now remember, this year, you had a number of projects that were going down. So you spent down a little bit of it this current year, but you're still at a healthy margin as it relates to your 25% fund balance policy. All right, well, let's look at slide number 6, your general fund revenues. You had a total of about a little over $2 million. The biggest piece, of course, being ad valorem taxes. Then you had about $763,000 in unrestricted intergovernmental revenues, $324,000 in restricted intergovernmental revenues, and I'm showing you in those little parentheses what some of those are for. So your revenues were actually up about $322,000 or 18% over the prior year. But most of that was those grants, one-time type of grants. It's not like you're going to get them every year. So remember, you got some CARES Act monies. Remember, you got some FEMA monies. Those don't just come in every year. So a lot of that increase is because of one-time grant money. As it relates to your budget, you came in a little bit over budget by about $23,000 or 1%. And we kind of list those areas. All right, well, let's move to the next slide, slide number 7. Your general fund expenditures were right at $2 million as well. We kind of list the big areas, general government, public safety, and so forth. You had an increase in your expenditures by about $314. Remember, you get grant money, what are you turning around using it? You're spending it, right? You're using it for various projects. So even though the revenues went up, so did those expenditures, because you got these one-time grant expenditures. Remember, you had some pretty significant capital outlay on the Carolina Drive culvert, and also you bought some vehicles. So those were some of the big outlays in fiscal year 21. Plus, remember, salaries and benefits. I mean, they always keep going up. That's the number one normal operating cost that every government has. As it relates to your budget, on the bottom of that slide 7, you were under budget by about 6% or $126,000. And we kind of list the departments there, but some of it was just tiny. You know, with COVID, certain things you wanted to start projects on contract and stuff, they just didn't happen. Things got delayed. And so a lot of times those projects also push over into the next year. So that was some of the driver there. On slide number 8, your fire department fund, you had a decrease in fund balance of approximately $69,000. Revenues were $588, expenditures $657, and again, those are generally used for benefits and salaries and capital outlay and so forth and other operating costs. The Harmon Field Fund didn't have a big significant change there. Had a decrease in fund balance of about $1,000 with revenues and expenditures really kind of netting against each other. All right, let's look at slide number 9. Your water and sewer fund had a decrease in fund balance of $400,000. Revenues were 1.6, expenditures of $2 million, and again, there were just kind of a lot of normal operating costs. When we look at your sanitation fund, had a slight decrease in fund balance. The big takeaways here is really looking at, as your costs go up, you're gonna really have to look at raising rents. Because that's the only way you generate money in these funds, unfortunately. And as salaries, benefits, or contracted services go up, they go up 5 or 10%. The only way you recoup that is if the volume of water goes up, if more people are using it, or you have to raise the price. So kind of keep that in mind. That's that last bullet point there on slide number 9. All right, well, let's look at slide 10. This is looking at your capital assets. Remember, that's your property, plant, and equipment. That's not just what people see, but it's also what's in the ground. Think about all those pipes and stuff. Those truly are, have a lot of value, and they get depreciated over their estimated useful life. But your total capital assets were $9.6 million. You had additions of $450,000. And we kind of list what some of those, additions were with the culvert repair, guardrails, the donated dog park. Remember, you had some water and sewer projects, a couple vehicles, and other equipment. But remember, let's give you an illustration. If you bought, let's say, a pumper truck for $1 million, and it has a 10-year life, we depreciate that fire truck over 10 years at $100,000 a year. So every time you buy something, then we begin to depreciate it. And so just be aware that number, depreciation was 513. A lot of that is stuff in the ground that people don't ever see as well. We did have a prior period adjustment. Susan worked very diligently. There were some capital assets that were showing up on the county records as assets you owned, and they weren't on your capital asset records. So we had to go back and try to find those assets, find what the value of those assets were when you acquired them, and add those to your capital asset records this year. And that took a month or so of a process trying to make sure we get your capital asset records accurate as possible. All right, next slide. All right, we're on slide number 11. We're going to look at your total debt obligations. Not a lot of activity here. The debt decreased by about $300,000 because you just paid down on your debt. You didn't really have any new big issuances or anything like that yet, but you were making your regular scheduled payments. Your debt service payments for fiscal year 22, the year that's about to end right now, is about $345,000. So remember, when you borrow, it's like borrowing on your house. You have a mortgage payment. This is the mortgage payment, $345,000 on all of your debt for fiscal year 22. All right, slide number 12, just a reminder about COVID. I think we all hope and we think we're at the back end of that. But again, if that spiked, new variants came up and it began to shut down the society, it has an impact on revenues. The lost option sales tax that the state levies on your behalf, you won't get as much of that if people don't go out and eat and are doing things. So just be aware there's risk when there's like this type of pandemic. All right, next slide, number 13. We just want to mention there's a new lease standard that kicks in for fiscal year 22 on leases. And what they want to do on leases, it used to be like if you were leasing a building and you paid $50,000 a year, you would just show rent expense and you would disclose in the notes that you have this operating lease. Well, they don't want it done that way anymore. They want you to treat it like debt. So if you were, let's say, renting a building for $100,000 a year for 5 years, they want you to set up a liability for $500,000 and a right to use asset for $500,000. They want it to be on the balance sheet in the statements of net position so that people can see it. Whereas in the notes, they didn't think anybody would ever see it. Who's going to really read all those notes and find that information? All right, so let's go down to slide number 4. We do have some recommendations. So in your package that he sent out, there's this separate letter. It looks like this. So if you ever want to find out more details on these recommendations, I want you to know they're in the back of this letter. It goes into a lot more detail. I'm going to get the highlights in the PowerPoint, but there's a lot more verbiage if you wanted to see it. We just want to encourage, we're really big on there being proper review and approval. And what I mean by that, not that just someone said they did it, we want to see that they signed and dated that they did it. So like if you prepare, some bank rec, we want someone to sign and date it. I prepared it on this date. This is the person. And then when someone reviews it, I want to see that they signed it and they dated when they reviewed it. That's real big for us, and we like to just encourage our clients to do that, because that gives proof to what you did. The fraud risk management program is another recommendation. We like organizations to develop, policy on how do they deal with fraud risk. So what happens if fraud or somebody in your organization is concerned about fraud? Who do they talk to? What's the protocol? And how are you identifying risk within the town that could be out there that we need to maybe put better controls on? What if someone just started a credit card account and nobody knew about it, and they just start credit charging? You want to make sure there's some type of program out there that helps people monitor fraud and identify it and know who to communicate it to if issues come up. All right, so that was item number 2 there. Your cash flows, I just mentioned this before, and your enterprise funds are getting low. And rate increases, or you're going to maybe need to use some ARPA funds or transfers in. But remember, as costs go up, if the rates on those utilities don't go up, you just start going more and more in the hole. So again, to be looking at that. Monthly financial reports, just that they are being generated and things are being reconciled back to your ledgers every month, making sure that your utility revenues in your system are tying to the ledger and to the system as well. All that's in sync. And then debt payments, that someone's tracking the debt payments and making sure they know what's coming in the future, and that if you're looking at one of your accounts and it's not matching up, someone's investigating to find out why they could be off between what the bank is saying, maybe in your amortization table. So those are the 5 management letter comments. And then there's some compliance findings as well. They're in the back of the green book. So if you want to know where more detail on that is, you would go and look at page 77 and on, and we go into detail what each of these items are, but we kind of truncated them here in some bullet points. Year-end closing process. You were in the midst of a system accounting conversion this past year. You also remember were switching accountants. There were just some adjustments that needed to have been made. And sometimes we just have to help with those. My hope is that with the new contract accountant, I really think she'll be good. I'm hopeful that those type of adjustments can be made before we come out to do the audit. The monthly reconciliations, again, we just want to make sure that those are happening and they're being signed off on. We talked about, the prior period adjustment for the capital assets. Remember how we noted at the county, we found some assets that were in your name, but they weren't on your books. We had to get them added this year. And so when there's a significant adjustment, we always have to make sure that the council, the board is aware of that. The other thing is on the purchasing and state pre-audit requirements is making sure you're trying to comply with the letter of the law. And it's very tough for a small entity. But again, whenever you're processing a bill, they want to make sure that you have the budget to cover it before it gets approved. And that it has to be signed off and dated that someone has verified it and all this type of stuff. And there's all these little rules to that. Next item is unallowable investments. You had some fire funds that were at one time in a stock, and you're not allowed to be in stock in the state of North Carolina. They've already liquidated that, so it's been moved out of it. But just to let you know, at one time it got placed over there. Everybody kind of forgot about it, but it was in a stock fund. You're not allowed to be in stock funds in the state of North Carolina. It wasn't a big balance, but again, it's just a small amount that had to be moved. And then the last thing here, they're really big on you don't overspend your budget. So if you end up getting close at year end overspending the budget, they want you to amend your budget, bring Zach to bring it back to you so that you always never exceed your budget. And if you ever do, we just have to let you know about that. Now, most of those items were approved by you, of course, but they want you to formally amend your budget because that's kind of what the state law of North Carolina requires. All right, I know I kind of will need to go to the next page, which is the last, slide number 15. Again, an unmodified opinion. That's a strange term. That's a good term because it says we're not aware of anything being materially misstated. Your general fund, you have a good financial condition. I really think you've got to look at those enterprise and utility funds. And the staff here really are great to work with. When you're small, you just have all the challenges. You don't have the staffing levels that you would like to be able to do finance, to do this and that. And so that just makes it harder for you, and lots of times results in us reporting more findings than a big organization that might have a finance director, a controller, a payroll director, and all these other positions. You just don't have all that. And so you have one person wearing tons of hats, and they can't do everything. And that's why you're trying to bring in that contract accountant to kind of help in some of those areas. All right, I'll open the floor to some questions. I know I'll go quick. Some people are glad I go quick. What you got?
When is our 2022 financial audit due to the state?
It's due to official in October.
When will we have a preliminary report for 2022?
It's good, yeah. Unfortunately for us, like a lot of people, we've had massive staff turnover. Yeah, and so for us, we told Zach the earliest we could start it would probably be December. Yeah.
So which means we're gonna be late again.
Yeah.
Which means I've been mayor here for 19 years, and I think we've been late 17 now.
Really?
And my question of you is the same thing I asked the state.
Yeah.
If it's wrong, and we get the audit, and we get it in my time, all our stuff in time, and your people don't get it done, we get dinged, not you.
Right.
And what I want to know is, when is the state going to consider moving to alternate years or every other year? And I know we've been discussing it. Because there are, how many like about our size, 300?
Yeah.
And there's
Unfortunately,
not
they have
enough guys
one-
to go around.
They have one size fits all, unfortunately.
Yes. And the truth is,
And we told Zach, I want y'all to know this, we're like, our staffing's bad, Zach, if you want to go out and get other auditors, we gave him some names. The hard thing is, there's not any out there, you know, they're all book solid, and it's very, like, we don't even propose on new work because we don't have any capacity. So we're trying to fix our own staffing problems, but you can't fix it overnight.
and the legislature and the others who make these guidelines, Gatsby and all the others, when I first ran for mayor, we were $1.6 million in the red, no one knew about it. We're getting dinged more now.
Yeah.
We did when we discovered
No,
that.
you're right, and they keep, like this year, they had a ton of new requirements. You know, Zach has to write, what's it called again, FPIC?
It's the FBIC. It's,
A response to every finding in addition to what he's always done in the past. So it's like and this year they said, you know, the auditor has to verify that he's communicated all these stuff to the board. They put that into the law. And so everything I went through, I even went through more detail than normal because they now added it to the law, all these things I need to make sure I cover with you. This wasn't here last year. So I'm like, man, it just keeps getting more hard, more difficult.
And I thank you, but I've said my piece. Right. And I know there's not enough of you, but you're the one that gets dinged.
I totally get it.
I've been dinged 17 or 19 years.
And that ding is a major
Yeah.
ding. And it frankly misrepresents to our citizens the actual state of municipal affairs, which is untenable, as I view it as commissioner.
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
I
I mean, we audit a lot of, you know, entities in South Carolina. They don't have a local government commission. It's the Wild Wild West. There's no deadlines, no reporting requirements, nobody monitoring you, no requirements. Other than you just gotta turn it in, sometime, your audit. And it's just different.
keep going back when we had the downturn 2008, 2009, 2010, the state was in the red. So they had, Jack, you may remember this, X number of accounts that we were getting back for whole homes. They took half of those back, which left us in the bind. They go, we balanced our budget. And except not you, but thank you very much for coming.
thank you, David.
Okay, item 7, budget ordinance. Jack, we're gonna start this, and I'm gonna immediately open a public hearing, if there are any questions.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, you want me to go first, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So you'll find in the packet the budget message, from me outlining basically everything we're on the budgets. The overview this year, what we're projecting, general fund about 1.7 million, Powell bill at 68, fire at 761, which would include the 2-cent tax increase, Harmon Field Fund at 251, tourism at 35, water sewer at 1.1, and then sanitation at 258. Basically, what we boiled it down to is we have not raised taxes. What we have done is we have looked at the enterprise funds, much like the auditor said. We have raised those rates for water, sewer, sanitation, both inside and outside, to kind of adjust some of that. We'll also be putting ARPA money into our budget as it comes. That's not reflected here. So you have those rates. Also, what we do here is you have the commissioner dates, the meeting dates, but the budget that's included, that is basically what we've seen this year as we walk through this entire process.
We don't have this.
You don't have this? It was in the agenda.
Agenda pack.
It was the agenda that we sent out. You should have, okay.
Yeah, it was similar.
Yeah, it was sent out, so, but to answer anything, it was roughly the same as what you've seen before. The only change is this year, really, again, the state, we have an unfunded mandate to provide a higher figure for pension and a couple of other things, but basically, this is the budget we've been working on all year. And just as like a quick thank you, Susan works her tail off every year, and today was pretty stressful trying to get some things done. So thank you, Susan, for everything that you do, not just for the budget, but for the town as a whole. We do want to thank the department heads. Randall, he sat through the budget this year, and he's kind of taking the reins over in the coming months, so hopefully he's happy with that. Jody, he's done his thing. He's trying to keep things in line. Walton's definitely taking over the fire department and doing really well. And Travis at Harmon Field's doing good, but, thanks to everyone in the office. We'll answer questions or take questions from you.
I'd ask a question. Did the state require more towards retirement? If I
So
remember correctly, that didn't happen just recently.
they passed maybe 1 or 2 years ago. Mr. Ayers may actually know, but they're going up a percentage point every year for the foreseeable future. So while we pay a certain rate for police officers and a certain rate for firefighters and the regular staff, those rates have went up 1.1%.
Question? Okay. Close the public hearing. Anything else we need to know about the budget before we pass it?
No, sir, just if you would like to pass it, you would vote on the budget ordinance. Pass that.
All right, Chair, I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget ordinance for fiscal year 22-23.
So moved.
All those in favor, aye? All opposed likewise, motion carries. We'll set the budget aside. Another one,
Yes, sir.
item 8.
I've made one Harmon Field board, so we're gonna pick up the pace on this. Miguel Tanzbanez currently serves in that position. He is requested to be reappointed. He is your town official.
Chair, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that.
All in favor, aye? Opposed likewise, motion carries.
All right, as a note, the 2-year appointment held by town Tryon appointed Stephen Nealon will be appointed by the Polk County Commissioners this year. So he's applied for that. The second one, Tourism Development Authority, you're required to have 1 member, shall be a member of the Board of Commissioners. That's Bill Kroll. He's not here, so we're going to elect him to that role.
I think we should. Chair, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All opposed, aye? All four, aye. Okay. Let's take it through the street. Okay, 10,
Revised
Wait, you got the points and other ones.
Ma'am?
Michelle's term runs out and Melanie's runs out in. Sure.
Are we
I
all,
want to make sure we don't miss anybody.
when do they run out?
June 30, 22.
Do they apply?
yeah, I think they all want to come back.
Yeah.
But we gotta make sure that,
Are those for us or the county?
this is all for us, this is the tourism she's talking about.
Okay.
So you'd be voting to appoint Bill as well as Michelle Newman, Melanie Jackson, and Maria Mason Freeman.
All, motion,
I mean,
all in favor, aye? Opposed, likewise, motion carries. That covers Susan? Okay.
Revised finance policy, this policy has been updated to reflect, two things, I believe. One is, it's not part. The purchase order, currently purchase order was dropped to 250 because of the issues we had when I first started, we changed it up. That is a hindrance for some of our staff. If Jody has to get a set of tires or do something on the fly, the tire gets popped, it becomes an issue with the work order portion of that. So we did change that and up that number. We also had a new policy basically for setting up online purchases. So basically electronic payments to Verizon, those kind of bills, we have to purchase order those as well in the given situation. We can do it electronically if you approve this policy.
Question? Sarah, on that motion? All in favor, aye? Opposed, likewise, motion carries. 11's been moved, go to 12.
Comprehensive land use plan, this is where we get into Mr. Ayers, Mr. Daniel, so Tim, go ahead.
So what you got in front of you is the comprehensive land use plan for adoption. We've gone through all the steps that we've needed to for the last few months. I want to give a big thanks to James with Foothills Regional Commission for all the help he's given us, and citizens who have entered their opinions on our public hearings and our meetings and the surveys. So yeah, basically this is the fruits of all that work. And we need to adopt it or not.
Any
We want to continue doing zoning, you have to
Yeah.
have all of these,
Any questions?
so not doing stuff.
Yeah, let's.
Considering this, we I need an open comment section.
No, you had a hearing
Yeah,
last
that's
meeting.
what
Yeah, that was last meeting.
So based on that, then Chair will entertain a motion to adopt. All in favor, aye? Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Work from the new land use plan. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep talking.
You're up next, Tim.
Oh, minimum housing. Okay, 136 Cleveland Road. We inspected it and informed the owner of the procedure. The back of that house is coming, and it's in bad shape, the foundation. So the hearing is set for July 12th. I'm talking to him about his options about either going through that procedure, doing the whole harmless thing, having the fire department burn it. But the wheels are in motion on that. Again, the hearing is July 12th. 144 Cleveland, spoke to the owner. He has started moving materials around and getting off the property. The official inspection will be happening in the very near future. From talking to him, he's probably gonna just take what he can out of the house and we're gonna knock it down. 161 Peak Street, he's cleaned up the property. The inspection for that building is scheduled for July 5th. But we are in discussions about him just donating the property, because every time he does things on that property, it seems like windows get broken and equipment gets stolen. So he may just be getting tired of it and donate it to us. That's what I have for minimum housing. I also wanted to bring up a business owner has approached me about having a canopy extend from their building to the curb's edge. That would require mounts in the right of way, which is not allowed per the ordinance. But I was just asking the council if they would be interested in staff suggesting some amendments regarding this type of thing.
Where is that located?
The bottom. It would be a rectangular,
I could not support that. We have fought for 20 years to deal with those eccentric canopies. And we've gotten rid of every one of them, save one. And I hope we get rid of that one. And you know, for me not to agree with that one, it's going to cost me dear.
okay?
Okay, and that being said, I have no idea if it works. Could something be set up, with the tables and a cover that you put up and down that extends it basically to the edge?
Well, an awning, a turnstile awning is perfectly fine, because there's several of them on the street. It's just appending it to the sidewalk that creates the problem. And that building is already in the historic district, and there are guidelines that very stringently cover what can and cannot be done, because it's registered as a district with the National Park Service. And you must follow that guideline, no matter what we
I did also mention to her that the ordinance specifically states all awnings have to be mounted to the wall and not.
And those three, all three of those buildings are in the historic district.
Okay. Well,
Those three buildings got us the historic district designation.
that's all I got.
Item 14, Zach, TDA.
So obviously Ms. Henderson's gone, so until then, I will be updating on TDDA things. I think we talked about it clearly, you understand what we're gonna do moving forward. I'll get something to you soon about application and process, and I'll be asking some of you to be on that.
Item 15,
Manager's report, we're going through a lot of stuff. It's the end of the year, so we've been pretty slammed in general trying to get things done. But I do want to stress the importance of the staff here, because I've had a pretty rough go the past month or so with everything else. And everyone from, Randall, Tim, Josh, Jody, they've all went beyond their typical duties to help cover some other area that I was working on. So I do appreciate everything. And you guys always go out of your way. So I'm very grateful to be working alongside you guys. And that's really all I had, unless you have any questions for me.
okay. Council Mayor, tonight's not Bill, Chris, Sherelle.
Well, I don't have much, just thank you. I'm gonna back up, back and thank the staff, thank all you guys I see out there all the time doing something, working hard, and we appreciate it very much. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and participating. Your participation is important to the process. I'd like also to thank the town employees. And thirdly, I'd like to mention that the Nina Swanberg place was approved last week for National Register designation. And so it will come under the aegis of the National Park Service.
I appreciate that Zach has so eloquently. Thank you all for us tonight. Thank you all too. I come through, sometimes I come a long way to go to work. I came through one morning and it seemed like everybody was working, and it reminded me of a movie scene where, people were out early in the mornings doing their flowers and digging, whatever it is they had to do. It reminded me kind of like New York-ish, but I did appreciate that more than I still appreciate what you all do.
Okay, I want to say thank you. I want to bring some news. This just happened since our last meeting, enough to do it. We took the track team, and 3 or 4 of those kids are in our corporate limits. We had 9 state track champions this year. And of those, 6 of them have signed to run in college, and the 1 kid that left for his senior year went to IMG. So with our senior class, we've signed 7 kids for 3 months. And more than half of those kids are inside our corporate limits. We like that a lot.
That's awesome.
Citizen comments? Speak, raise your hand, John.
I actually came not to speak at all, but in listening on the work session, I think the town needs to rethink their advisory committees. I mean, really, I've been on the park committee for 18 years. And my point being is, Chris qualified to do the $9 Rogers Park. And to my knowledge, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just saying, to my knowledge, it's never been shared with the park committee. So my point is, we're really not advisory, we're really glorified extra maintenance. So, maybe the town doesn't need all the advisory committees they have, because it appears to me, with exception of maybe 1 committee, there's not a lot of advising going on. And so why have, it's sort of like you're going through the motions, you got these committees because you're supposed to have an advisory committee. Well, if that's not their purpose, do away with it. I mean,
What you say is valid.
well, that's not, I can name other committees which I won't, but I attend on occasion. And really, they don't serve in any advisory capacity at all. And so don't have it, do away with it. Because it's just really, when I think about the hours, just the meetings in 18 years, good Lord, I've spent a lot of hours, in meetings. And, members come and go. I'm really the only lone original member. That's nothing to brag about. That's not a bragging thing. I'm just saying we don't utilize the committees we have. If we aren't going to utilize them, get rid of them.
I want to ask a dumb question, because I've been on some of those committees. Do y'all take minutes and pass those up to us?
We used to take minutes, when Meg used to come and take minutes for us. We are really loose. We essentially have one, I won't say elected, because, the person keeps getting reappointed without any opposition. I won't name that individual, but he would gladly give up that role. But, I do think that's a valid thing in terms of minutes. But I know in the March meeting, I was here, and somebody came to the meeting and said something about the park committee, and Bill Kroll, and he's not here to defend himself, but it's just what he said. He said, we don't have a parks committee. We haven't had one since 2004. So if we don't, used to, 1 member of the council used to sit on that committee. I don't think we've had anybody on the committee in at least 10 years. So again, I had no intention of talking, but, and Chris, I'm not saying your idea is a bad idea. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, another good example, the cover of the stage, which turned out great. But the first time I found about it, I was down there working, doing volunteer work, pruning and whatnot. And Bill's down there with it again, and I'm not Bill because he took the initiative to do it, but we weren't aware of that at all. And I brought it to the committee at our next meeting and said, hey, we're getting an awning on the stage, and everybody said, well, what's it gonna look like? Heck, I know, I don't even know, I don't know anything about it. All I know is they're down there measuring. So my point is if we don't serve an advisory way, let's just dissolve. It just makes sense. That's my point. The other thing, and again, I wasn't planning on talking about, as I was listening to the whole meeting, I think it would behoove the town to have a brainstorming session, but with individuals, and pick 20 or so in town, and the mayor and Zach and someone on council. It doesn't need to be like a group thing. And ask them questions about, what's your vision for the town? And just do it maybe once every 2 years, and you can rotate who you invite. And the 20 people you want are the out of the box thinkers or people that have a special expertise. And I've been to the sessions that we had with the Walker fellow, who's really quite a great, moderator. But I think lots of times when people in a group, they won't share ideas openly unless you just actually force them to. So I'm talking about the mayor and Zach and one of the council members. Y'all can meet at the depot, have individuals come in, limit their time to 30 minutes, and just have, 20 or so different people from the town say, hey, what's your vision for the town and where we're going?
Which names did we have that the business group for a while? And you're right. We did that with one of the managers in the past. Now, I don't remember which one, but at first it was a bunch of people, and then it trickled down to maybe one or two people, and then it goes down to nothing. So you're right. Maybe we need to, every 6 months, every year and a half, because if it goes, it sounds like such a good idea. The first time you got this room, you got 30 people in it with me inside. The next time it's 15, and the fourth time you got 4 of us. I don't know the answer to that question, but I know working in the committees and stuff that I do, it's the same way everywhere. It really is. And I was going to tell you about the cemetery committee. We're working on that now. And it started before Zach got here. We got water put in the cemetery. I'm telling you on ground. It took us 8 years.
Yeah.
8 years to get water put in the cemetery. And nobody did anything wrong. It just took that long for local government to work. I remember when we got on the fast track to get the rehab for the water plant. For over 4 years. We could have all starved to death in a few months, but over 4 years. And that was the fast track. I tell people, molasses is slow. Federal government, local government, state government is slow. Okay, next.
Lily Dobbin, I just want to kind of segue into what John was talking about a little bit, but I kind of have a vision for time based on what it was like when we were younger. I feel like the middle class don't have a lot of recreation that's affordable. And young people don't have a lot of places to go to do constructive things and stay out of trouble. We have a youth center, as John might remember, down the street. But my suggestion is with some of the funds, perhaps one of the existing buildings could be used for a bowling alley. Your tourism would certainly, who doesn't like to bowl? It's constructive, it's not noisy. The other thing would be finding a large building to put a skating rink. Young parents and teenagers love to skate. It's another constructive way to put some funds into the community to the middle class working people that have to go places like Spartanburg or Hendersonville or Asheville for that kind of recreation. And when we were young, when John and I were young, we had this wonderful youth center program at Tryon Fine Arts Center where everyone from, I believe it was kindergarten, was it, or first grade through 12th grade could participate in a play. There would be a director and everything, and it was a whole summer-long program that the community loved, and there were some great plays, and it really did wonders for the young people, the teenagers. I don't know why they stopped doing that. But I think that, and it brought money to the Fine Arts Center as well, because the tickets were often sold out. So my suggestion is to think about, if you would, some ways to spend some of the money on recreation for middle class people, the working class people that serve us here, like in the restaurants and in the grocery stores, so that they don't have to go to another town to have a good time, and let their kids do things that are constructive. A climbing wall would be a wonderful thing. This is kind of my vision, having something like this here, and allowing younger people things to do that aren't just real expensive and perhaps over their budget, but would also benefit the town from the tourism enjoying it as well. So thank you.
Elliot, thank you. We have a climbing wall,
Still have a little theater for children too.
and the little theater still operates. We have Harmon Field that have several things that are free.
Yes, but
Would I
not
like to
bowling
see some of
alley.
those other things? And when you say you'd like to have a little bowling alley, I'm gonna take a wild guess, and I wish I were wrong, but a bowling alley and skating combined would probably cost this town to operate it, make it get what we needed, $1 million investment. That's more than we take in for tax in 1 year.
Well, the Polk County Community Foundation has about 80 of them. Why can't we help get some of that?
We both,
That money on our behalf.
we'll be glad to take it. We'll build a bowling alley.
Well, you know, what can I do to add? I mean, it would benefit land from Columbus and Tryon. People would come from all over for something like that.
We agree?
So what can I do to help facilitate it?
Every
Besides coming here and talking about it?
Start a fundraiser, I guess, because it would take tons of money in a place, and we're not in the business of being in business.
Right, but I know there's existing buildings perhaps could be used for something like that.
Well, I beg to differ.
We own the buildings over than this in the fire department, do we?
No, we own lots of other buildings, but they are town buildings.
But they're not big enough to do
They're
anything.
designated, and the last time I checked, and this was more than 10 years ago, a single lane, bowling lane, was $100,000. That was over 10 years ago.
I'm sure it's not cheap, but I bet there are some benefactors that would contribute.
Find them for us, and we'll take their money, I promise you.
I'm serious, I really think it can be done, and it would
Then I'll
benefit
say one
everyone.
final thing. We own a building we bought from the school in hopes to be able to put some type of recreation for kids in this county. It's falling apart because we can't get anybody to invest in it. And basically, the building would be free if they would invest in it and put something in for the kids.
Well, I'm willing to try to get something going, I just don't know how to start. You tell me where to start, because this would benefit this whole place, everybody could enjoy it. And yeah, I know it takes money, but, so I'll apply for a grant perhaps, for something like
I'm
that.
with you. I'd like to see more things for kids.
I mean, I plan on applying for a grant to research my hiking sticks versus, trekking poles. But I'll apply for a grant if that's what it takes to try to get something like that available.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Rainey Jackson. My name is Rainey Jackson. Sorry I wasn't speaking louder. I sent an email around the 10th of this month, and I don't know that anybody got it, because I didn't hear anything back. And I know that technology stinks sometimes. I sent it through the website. So I was
Did you
in,
send the one about the food truck?
I did,
Okay.
I did.
Yes, I got it. I read every word of it.
Good. I just wanted to make sure you guys got it. When I didn't hear anything back, and because the website didn't send like an email to me to let me know that it had been received or that somebody had gotten it, I
You
assumed.
sent it to the town sent it to me. I read it. I almost wrote a letter.
Okay,
And I got mail, not you.
okay.
But because people decided to close restaurants and didn't tell us.
Right,
So we all pushed him to call you guys,
yes,
and then you guys got called out
yes,
for something that you didn't do.
right.
And I will be honest with you, as mayor, sometimes I keep my mouth shut because I get into a screaming match with people, and I've learned, you don't have to get into a screaming match. You just quietly tell people, hey, the town invited those people back. And I heard that somebody was calling you guys out.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that person lived in town. Well, I heard a cough shut down the town. We asked the lady to be there. Why? Because 3 restaurants closed, and didn't tell anybody.
Is that the letter in your hand?
I can't hear you.
I said, is that the letter in your hand? I'm sorry.
No, this is the thing here. I did, when I sent it through the website, I made sure to select all of the council members as well as the mayor. but I wasn't certain how the email worked, but I'll try to make sure you get a copy. Basically, the body of the email was, and like he's talking about, Zach found out very late that there was a need for food services provided downtown because Huckleberry had shut down. And unfortunately, there was some miscommunication, and Zach had given me incorrect dates. When we did show up, we received, people were harassing us online on social media. They were saying hateful things like we're not part of the community, we're not paying taxes. When the Toasted Cuban and I both, like I have 2 businesses here in town, and I manage multiple buildings from South Trade all the way through North Trade. I'm well integrated into the town, I just don't talk with a lot of people. And Raul, who owns the Toasted Cuban, his family owns Over Mountain Vineyards. So we are people who are local, who are dedicated to this town and community, and they beat us up pretty bad. And on top of that, because of the miscommunication with the dates, I lost several $100s. And I was able to recover a little bit of that, but that's a mistake because we were all in it for the right reasons. We were all trying to do right for Tryon. And the reason I'm here, this is the same thing I said in the email, I'm not asking for money. That has nothing to do with it. But I suffered damage to my reputation because people thought that I was an interloper. They thought that I was intentionally trying to do harm to the coffee house. Kevin and I had long discussions. He and I are good. We're planning how to work together in the future. You know, there's nothing between me as a business owner that was ill. But I thought that the harassment would have stopped with me because I'm a coffee truck. But then they went to the Toasted Cuban and they don't do coffee at all. You know, so it was pretty hard, and I need some help kind of repairing my reputation because now people, even if I get assignments here, they're not likely to purchase from me because they feel like I interloped into their area, and what they're doing is out of love and kindness. They're trying to protect their town and their town's businesses. I get that. There was nothing that was done that wasn't done with kindness in mind, but I ended up taking a hit for that. And so I didn't know that you got it. I'm glad that you brought it. And I'll make sure that you guys get a copy.
I will tell you, I spoke to a couple of people. It was an unfortunate confluence, if you will. I found out on Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever day it was, that the lady who runs the call was gonna fly to Spain, I think it's Spain. Maybe it's Paris. Anyway, she was having hip surgery. She'll be coming back this week or next week. The next day, I find out that the hot dog place is gonna be closed, and she's taking all her employees because it's hard to get them, they're gonna go camping. Then I find out that Huckleberry's is gonna be closed. I saw on the internet they were gonna go to Alaska, but I didn't know they would take everybody. So I was as blind as you were.
Yeah, we're sorry that you got treated that way. We can't help what some of the citizens do sometimes, but it's
I can tell
unfortunate.
you this,
I could probably name the ones that said it.
There were about 5.
I'm beginning to get a little tired of seeing the same crap here that I see in other places. We're better than that. We really are. It'd be nice to have a newspaper here to publish that, but I'm just really tired of it. You know, it's not, okay, are you here, why are you here? What are you waiting this for? I know, because I've heard it. And that's not what we do in Toronto.
Well, I'd just like to, please keep inviting me, please keep including me. The only way that this is gonna heal is over time, and if they see that I'm sanctioned to be there, and that there are people here that approve of me, and if somebody mentions something, please let them know that we were acting out of the kindness of our heart, trying to support the community, and that we are a part of the community. That's all I ask, because I took a beating.
But yes, and let me tell you where part of that came from, and I don't know how many years ago it was. I was out of town, we had the movie festival here, someone, not you, anybody here now, had asked to bring a food truck and put it up beside the fire park. I got home at 4:30 with my cross-country team and going to my house, and they blocked the street and moved it up there without permission. And the street's literally blocked. And there are 4 restaurants now there's nobody at because they're all standing in line at the food truck. And that's what started it. Because the person went somewhere where he did not have a permit to go to. And so that put that bad taste. And I'm afraid 4 years later, it spilled over on you some. And I apologize for that. And I'll do what I can to help men.
Thank you. And it's Pacific Chicken too, they got hit just as hard. I think people weren't as, biased against them because they didn't do coffee, so they actually did their own business. And they said that they would be willing to come back, and if there was ever a situation where maybe you got McGowan Street going, and we had some stable stuff going there, they would be willing to help become a fixture with that. And I would too as well. So, it was both of us that really got hit pretty hard with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
No other comments, Chair, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, Chris.
Recess.
Thank you. Recess until next Tuesday, the 28th at 5 p.m. Recess. Thank you, sir.